Okay, and we are live at this moment. Just want to say good evening to everyone out there. My name is Corey McCray, Senator for the 45th Legislative District, and I'm honored. It's an honor to serve as the Baltimore City Senate Delegation Chair. I just want to thank you for joining us tonight for the delegation's weekly virtual grassroots briefing. I'd like to just take the time out to recognize my colleagues who are here with us. Senator Antonio Hayes, Senator Murray Washington, I'm letting her in, Senator Charles Sidnor, and Senate President Bill Ferguson will join us in about 5 minutes. Senator Carr extends her regrets as she has had another scheduled engagement for this evening. In addition to its impact on public health and safety, the COVID-19 pandemic has had major effects on our economy, which we heard about last week from agency heads and small business owners. The pandemic has also had a massive impact on our higher education institutions, requiring some to transition to distant learning. Recognizing this, the Senate delegation would like to take the time out to spend this hour together hearing directly from some of our Baltimore's universities and college presidents. Tonight's college and university presidents panel will run about 25 minutes with each president speaking for about 5 minutes. 5 minutes, please, y'all. And what we'll do is we're going to have enough time for questions. After each president has spoken, there will be an opportunity for the senators to ask questions of panelists. Without further delay, I'd like to just introduce all of the people that we have here today. President Deborah McCurdy from the Baltimore City Community College, who is working diligently to put the community college into community college. Put community into community college. President Anthony Jenkins from Coppin State University, who joined the university just last year, but has already hit the ground running. President Ron Daniels of Johns Hopkins University, who has done a phenomenal job leading our medical university during this pandemic in helping with the city of Baltimore. President David Wilson of Morgan State University, who has reimagined the impact his university can have, leading to its preeminent public urban research university status. And the 46th mayor of Baltimore, President Kurt Smoke, who continues to serve so well and so faithfully at the University of Baltimore. The subject tonight is how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected our colleges and universities, and how have you all responded? President McCurdy, we'll start with you. Followed by President Jenkins, President Daniels, President Wilson, and last, but certainly not least, President Smoke.
Thank you so much, Senator McCray, and delegates as well, and as well my fellow presidents. My pleasure to be here as well. I'm sure we will all share some similar kinds of stories and responses, but COVID-19 has taken tremendous toll on education and certainly Baltimore City Community College. And so as we begin to look at the impact, if I start with the students, the impact there has just been tremendous. Many of our students come to the institution really not being fully prepared on the technology front. The college at the same time did not have all of the technology response that we needed to have as well. And so what we're seeing is a lot of shift over to new technologies that the college was responsible then for seeing that not just students who suffered without having laptops, but faculty as well, staff, everyone is working from home. So we're still on remote. So it is still tremendously impactful for us. One of the things that we started out doing right away when you look at the impact was I'd asked all cabinet members here to take their operations and shift them fully to remote. So think about remote, that you don't have face-to-face, and shift everything over, which then began the call for new technology, new infrastructure. We are on the verge now of totally transitioning to a new technology infrastructure, which will cost millions of dollars now to put in place, long overdue. And I think COVID-19 just pushed that forward as well when you're talking about everything on remote and how we had to respond. So all operations then we're shifted over to technology, and we expect to continue in that mode. That means all of your operations, from testing to counseling, to advising, to financial aid, everything for us had to be shifted over at an institution that already had tremendous shortfalls with regard to technology. Tremendous impacts in terms of certainly the staff side, the emotional side, mental health side, the physical side, as we're seeing more and more of our staffs and likely our students now coming up with illnesses, whether they're physical, whether they're emotional, and how do we begin to look at the well-being of our students. We've seen a tremendous reduction in staff, as well as we had to say goodbye to some staffs on the facility side, the housekeeping side as well. We expect that we may recover from some of that. We've had to spend thousands of dollars in recovery on just software in terms of technology. We've looked at as well how to really make this work better for our students. And so we've shifted a lot of the money, a lot of the CARES Act money that came in, not just the portion for the students, but the institutional portion. We've shifted over to support our students. And so this semester alone, we went back in, we looked at many students who were eligible but in need financially, and took additional dollars to support their tuition and pay the tuition. Last summer, as many of you know, we fully paid for all the student textbooks, as well as shipping. We're still paying for a great deal there as well. And so we're taking the CARES money, we're expecting a new wave of CARES money, and I know what we're going to be doing, which is looking at where our students have the greatest need. And so we have so many students still who financial aid doesn't quite get there, or there are issues with the FAFSA and so forth. And so what better way to respond to the students than to take the CARES money and put that to better use as well. Tremendous planning has to go on as well. So we're doing planning on reopening the college as well as we get ready for face-to-face. All this has to go on simultaneously as we look at the impact. So as we're looking at strategies for campus, the site, health, safety, classroom instruction, all of that is going on at the same time. We are reaching out to the community as well to share resources. So throughout the summer, we served as food distribution sites, lunch distribution sites to help feed people in the community. As some of you are now aware, I think we are the mass vaccination site in the city of Baltimore as well. So the vaccine site opened up today and starts today. We expect that we'll be serving 400 to 500 in conjunction with the Maryland Health Department as well. So we've used and taken this time to really look internally at ourselves. But again, our number one priority is the students. So apart from technology, laptops, Comcast support as well. We had many students who simply didn't have internet connection. So we've cut some deals with Comcast to provide that, where we're paying for that service as well for faculty and staff. And so I expect that as this new wave comes in, the high priority for us really is going to be on how do we support the students and continue with the infrastructure, mostly technology infrastructure, but we're really going to be pressing on how are we going to reopen the campus. We expect to begin to see some of that transition coming up in the early part of the spring so that we can begin to move on there as well. So the big hit for us has been having to eliminate some of the positions, having to take some of the lower end positions with facilities and housekeeping and so forth. We're continuing to look at where we can provide some additional support for faculty and staff as we see enrollment beginning to take a hit as well. Many students simply are not prepared for online learning. They didn't sign up for online learning, and that's a mode of instruction that everyone really can't manage. And so having to put in additional resources, additional software, the allied health fields as well has taken a tremendous hit for us in terms of getting our nursing students out, our allied health students out as well. So putting infrastructure in place has been a heavy priority for us as we continue to look at ways that we can respond and what is it going to look like when we go back face to face, and as we heard some conversations early today, and being prepared for people wanting to work from home and what are going to be all of those implications as well. So there's lots of going on, lots of legal responses as well as we deal with faculty, staff, new contracts and so forth. So in some ways, the COVID, if there is a byproduct that is positive, it has helped us look at our operations and our infrastructure in ways that the college would never have seen under any reaccreditation visit or any other type of assessment visit. And it has really allowed us to take a close look at everything and begin to look at how we strengthen, how we plan, and how we strategically move forward. And I can stop there. Senator, as the rest of the presidents also need to come in and speak.
Thank you, Dr. McCurdy. Dr. Jenkins? And
Thank you.
Jenkins, before you get started, I just want to recognize that we've been joined by Senate President Bill Ferguson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to all of our elective officials who are here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Like Dr. McCurdy, Coppin State University has been impacted by COVID-19. I'll tell you that we were one of a few institutions who forged ahead this past fall to have a low density model operating on our campus. And we did so for multiple reasons. We felt it was important for our incoming freshmen to have a sense of transition to college and the acclimation of what it would be like to transition from high school to a four-year institution. We isolated or identified those freshman courses that we knew traditionally would be a challenge for incoming freshmen. And we felt it would be even more of a challenge if those courses were taught online. And we also had requirements for many of our seniors. As you know, we have an outstanding nursing program, one of the best in the entire state. And we have students who were required to meet certain touch points. We had research that was going on campus. So we really looked at our institution from the perspective of how could we move forward? How could we maintain the safe wellness and health of our students, our faculty, and our staff, and do so in a way that continues to move our graduating seniors towards graduation and our incoming freshmen getting acclimated to their new institution. And I am pleased to say that with the work of my wonderful team and our students taking this seriously, and I give a lot of credits to our students, they took this pandemic seriously, and we just came out of a testing cycle. Our positivity rate is 0.4%, 0.4. That's under 1%. And so we, throughout the year, hovered between 0.4 and 0.7% throughout the entire year. So there is a lot that folks can learn from Coppin on what we did, how we did it, and how we're going to do it moving forward in the spring, as we're going to use that same de-densified model on our campus. But that was not without some financial challenges. Because we use a low density model in our residential facilities, we cut the students living on campus and our housing by 50%. That was north of a $2 million shortfall in revenue for Coppin. We also spent a considerable time and investment in improving the HVAC systems across campus. We also spent significant dollars in the other type of PPE, plastic dividers. We have built glass, or I should say plexiglass cubicles for our lab and research students, so they would have the space and the ability to continue to conduct their research and do it in a safe way. We were testing our campus every 2 weeks. And so the actual COVID-19 testing cost that we saw ticked up north of $150,000 for the university. We also saw a hit to the institution's budget from an enrollment standpoint. You know, as Dr. McCurdy indicated, many of our students have selected our institutions because they want that face-to-face on-campus interaction, and the virtual reality of what we were trying to operate within was not conducive to every student being successful. And so we saw students step away from the university with the understanding that they would return when the environment permitted them to once again be immersed in the campus experience that they have sought all of these years. So that took a financial hit on the institution. When you couple these financial challenges that the institution has faced, coupled with the $3.7 million in reduction of our state appropriation over the last fiscal year, it has challenged us to make sure that we can continue to put the right wraparound support services around our students, continue to operate at a very high level, and understanding that we serve a significant number of federal Pell recipients. Those students require more financial resources to get over the finish line and more wraparound services to be successful. In fact, we at Coppin educate the highest Pell eligible student recipient population in the state among four-year institutions. So these have been financial challenges for the university. However, we have been working very diligently to make sure that we look at our finances and we use them in the best way possible to continue delivering a quality education. I am pleased to say that my students that are in my nursing department are currently partnering with the city of Baltimore and helping to vaccinate our citizens because that is important. And that's a part of who we are at Coppin. We challenge our students, and a part of our educational philosophy is to give back, pay it forward, and make a difference in your community. So I am just proud of how well our students are actually doing. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about those particular facets, those financial challenges. But in spite of that, we continue to forge ahead, and our students continue to navigate these extraordinary times. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. And now I wanted to move on to President Daniels, Johns Hopkins University.
Thank you, Senator McCray. It's a pleasure to be here with my fellow presidents and with the delegation. I think in some ways what the two other presidents who have gone before me have indicated is equally true at Hopkins. And so I'm going to try as much as possible to focus on some of the somewhat distinctive features of Hopkins that add another dimension to the story here. Obviously, Coppin and Baltimore City Community College, we have had a significant impact on our student population, and like these institutions and like others that you'll hear from today, we've been grappling with what is the ideal way in which you bring back your population, how much is virtual, how much is in person. But the consequences of managing that issue are one issue, but on top of that, we have a very significant research enterprise that has been very significantly challenged through the COVID pandemic, and then of course a clinical enterprise as well. And it's been challenging, of course, just to be able to figure out what are prudent decisions, how do you protect the health and safety of our patients, our students, our faculty and staff during this period, and making the right decisions at the right moment in managing those risks. But of course, as you've been hearing from my two colleagues, there's also significant financial challenges that are entailed as well. In the case of Johns Hopkins, when you look at reductions in tuition revenue, loss of housing and dining revenue, loss in clinical revenue, loss in indirect charges that we can impose on research. When you put all these things together, the revenue losses are really quite extraordinary and unprecedented. It's about, for us, it was about $100 million of revenue losses that we have projected through the last third of last fiscal year and this fiscal year. Now, having said that, as you see the magnitude of that loss, we're working diligently, obviously, to try and find ways in which you mitigate those losses. And we've enjoyed some success. I would say most significantly, the clinical revenue, which, as our hospital filled up with COVID patients, that meant that the ability of our medical school faculty to get clinical revenues for non-urgent care diminished accordingly, because there were places in the hospital that had to be devoted to COVID patients. But we're finding that that we've gotten better at sort of managing those types of risks. And whereas last year, when the pandemic was at its peak, there was a very significant reduction in the amount of non-urgent clinical activity. At this point, with a similar patient load, we're doing better in terms of maintaining some semblance of that activity. And so too with our research mission. It came way down, came to a screeching halt in the spring, but then we brought it back up again. And again, it's not operating at the level that it was previously, but it is very close to, with all of the rules around dedensification, masking, and so forth. And so too with our education enterprise, we've experienced tuition losses and fee losses in some areas. But again, I think we've been effective in mitigating, in some areas, the magnitude of that. Worked harder to bring new students into our programs. Again, not to say that the losses and the challenges haven't been significant, but just the institution, given the amount of time we've been at this, has become more agile in the way in which we respond to these shocks. I would say, in thinking about the key themes for us as to how we've managed through this period, first and foremost, was at a very early stage taking pretty significant, some might even say draconian, austerity measures in order to be able to prepare ourselves for the duration of the pandemic. And so putting in place restrictions on salary increases, zero salary increases, hiring freezes, those were difficult things for an organization to do that is used to renewal and growth each year, but we thought it was important in the moment. But more than that, we did introduce measures to suspend retirement contributions across our employee groups for this fiscal year, $150 million saving to the institution, and did that again in an effort to, as much as possible, do job preservation and make sure that we were able to develop the breathing space to manage through the pandemic. At the same time that we have taken those measures, we obviously have incurred, just in the way you've heard, incurred a number of new costs around increased funds for support of our employees, for our faculty, for caregiving, for support for our communities, and then, of course, new expenses like those entailed by testing, where, as we are bringing back this semester, our undergraduate student population on campus will be testing the students twice a week on an asymptomatic basis. Every student tested twice a week. And that testing regime, we're projecting to run at about $16 million. So when you put all of these effects together, it's clear that we are seeing revenue reductions. At the same time, we're seeing significant cost increases and increased obligations to members of our university community and the community around us. And again, the watchword here is doing this in a way that demonstrates, scrupulous regard for safety and health of our community, but also recognizes that we're a major institution and have responsibilities to try as much as possible to keep employment as high as we can and to make sure that we're discharging our responsibilities clinically in terms of our education and research. Thank you.
Thank you, President Daniels. Now let's move on to Dr. Wilson over at Morgan State University.
Thank you very much, Senator McCray and other members of the delegation. I can just say ditto in terms of what I've already heard from my fellow presidents, but I'll try to be succinct and highlight the kinds of things that we here at Morgan have grappled with, are grappling with, and will continue to grapple with for a little bit. First of all, I have to go back to FY20, the fiscal year that ended June 30th of 2020. Because of the revenue losses, and those losses came our way in the same way as you've heard from Hopkins, Coppin, we had to refund student housing fees, athletic fees, all of those fees. We were projecting, as of June 30th, 2020, a $15.8 million deficit. And we were saved, actually, by the CARES Act, and we were able to pay ourselves back for those losses. However, there were a couple of things that happened which actually compounded it. We had to give back to the state $8.9 million for FY20. And we are also setting aside $11 million for FY22. And so when we are looking at, so we were able to close the budget deficit as of June 30th, 2020. However, going into FY21, we are projecting a $28 million deficit. And we were able to carry over some of the dollars from the CARES Act, but still we were only able to get the deficit down to about $15 million. And then much like Hopkins, we put in place a series of cost containment measures, hiring freezes and the like, and we have realized some income savings from there. But as of today, we are projecting a $5.6 million deficit if, for example, we don't get additional stimulus money or some kind of support. We also have a student population here of about 8,000, and our students also want to be in an environment where it is high touch, but laced with high tech. And so when our students are away, and they are, 99% of them are now studying remotely, I cannot prevaricate, I can't lie to you. This is tough on our students. It's damn tough. And it's tough because this is not the way they learn best. It's tough because of all of the other circumstances in which they find themselves when they are not on the campus. Our students are struggling with emotional issues and being isolated and away from a support network. Our students had technology challenges, and we were fortunate that we were able to get some private dollars that came in unsolicited from a couple of foundations, or enabled us to go out and purchase computers for students that did not have them, to purchase hotspots for students who were in environments where there was no access to Wi-Fi. I even enrolled in 2 distance education courses here myself because I wanted to get a sense of what they were experiencing. And I learned a lot. The Chronicle of Higher Education actually interviewed me for a national story on exactly what I was learning in this space, and it was a lot. As we looked at the fall, we decided to house on the campus about 330 students. Now we normally house on the campus about 3,000, so about 10%. So we had all that revenue loss, but in order to house those, we had also, like President Daniels at Hopkins, we had a real strong testing cadence. We were testing and are continuing to test 2 times per week. And we test everybody. We test all of our frontline employees, as well as all of our students. And so as of last week, we had administered, I think, close to 10,000 tests here at Morgan. And much like President Jenkins, our positivity rate was about 1.1%. It just got up to about 1.1%. But that was because of the regularity of the testing. That's 2 times a week, which was, the kind of research standard, if you will. So if you test 2 times a week, eventually, you're going to get the positives, and then we had enough space to isolate, if you will. And so I guess the takeaway here is that we are currently looking at a deficit that is quite significant. We are still waiting to see what dollars we're going to get from the stimulus that was passed in December. We do know what we're going to get in terms of the pot of money in the big pot for all universities. But there's a set aside for HBCUs, and we have a conference call with the U.S. Department of Education on Friday to hopefully give us some sense of what that will be. What I would want the delegation to take away from this is that Morgan is an institution that has a lot of momentum. We are on the rise. We are hell-bent on ensuring that on the public side that we are producing research that matters, where individuals will know what to do with on Monday morning. And we are opening our doors as wide as possible to as many as possible to provide the greatest education possible to enable them to dance on the world stage with anyone. And so we are hopeful that we will continue to get the kind of support from the state to enable us to continue this mission that we're on. And with that, Senator McCray, I'll stop and be more than willing to take questions at an appropriate time.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I just wanted to thank each and every one of the presidents for running the time schedule very right. I'm going to move on to last but not least, President Smoke. If you can close us out, and then we're going to go to questions.
Well, thank you very much, Senator McCray, and to the members of the delegation. First of all, I just want to thank each and every one of you for your tremendous support of higher education. You can see that, in the city, we have a rich diversity of universities. Ours is not a residential campus. We've got outstanding community college, wonderful private institutions, and great public institutions serving a really diverse population. But your support, just continued support of higher education, has just been invaluable. So I wanted to start by thanking you for that. And let me pick up from where President Wilson just left off. Getting support from the state and federal government has been vitally important. All of the issues that my colleagues have laid out before you, he said ditto, I double ditto that. So let me give you a couple of unique things on the University of Baltimore campus. First of all, as you know, the University of Baltimore started in 1925 as a merger of a Knight's Law School and Business School. So we're the only university in the state that has a law school and an undergraduate program on the same campus. Our focus is, and most of our students are working adults. And in fact, we only admit a very small number of students directly out of high school. So overwhelmingly 70–75% of our students are transfers from community college or transfers from other four-year institutions, and they are all working adults. So you can imagine that the impact of COVID-19 on the employment situation in the area has had an impact on students' ability to attend schools, their parents' ability to help finance, because so many people have been laid off. So that has had a real ripple effect. We had a unique situation, though, on our campus because we house the Baltimore City Police Academy and Training Center. And I can tell you, having them on our campus has actually been a benefit. As you probably read recently, they had their highest highest number of recruits. And it's because they have a facility now that where previously they were in abandoned middle school building. So having them on our campus has benefited us, has benefited also the community. We have done all the things that our colleagues have said in terms of belt tightening, unfortunately laying off people. I took a 10% pay cut. The impact on students has been, we've got about 350 fewer undergraduates than we thought we would have for this year. But for some reason, we had an increase in the number of law students coming. So it hasn't been a complete balance financially. We've taken the same kind of financial hit that you've heard described before, but impact on students has been slightly different. I just want to say one other thing with a different hat, because as you know, I chair the board of the Baltimore City Community College, and I'm just so proud of what Dr. McCurdy is doing. I do want to point out that our development activity at the community college continues. I want to clarify that it's something that I heard that people thought that we were going to tear down the Bard building and build a parking lot there. I just want to make it real clear that that is not the plan of the community college. We have learned our lesson from trying to redevelop the Bard building previously, and the way in which we did it, we only got one bidder in that. So working with the Department of General Services, they told us to do a two-step process, which was to clear the land and then bid it that way. And so we would be in phases. Phase one, tear down the site, clear the land. If no bid, yes, have a surface parking lot temporarily while you're going out for a developer. In doing that, in this two-step process, we have issued a request for interest. We have received now 12 responses to that, whereas previously we got 3 responses to a request for interest and then 1 response for a request for bid. So we're doing a different process, not in any way intending to have a permanent parking lot down there. I just want to assure you that Dr. McCurdy has a good plan, consulting with the state, and it's a phased plan that will benefit the community college and the community going forward.
Thank you, President Smoke. At this time, I'd just like to see if my colleagues, any senators have any questions. I'm going to start with Senate President Bill Ferguson.
Thank you. Well, President Smoke answered one of the most important ones. I was curious as to the surface parking lot rumor that had been out there. So thank you. And thank you, Dr. McCurdy, for the work there. I do have a sort of more kind of global question that probably is different across different campuses. But there's been a lot of talk about higher ed enrollment and the impact of the pandemic on long-term enrollment, that now that sort of, there's a year or almost I guess you could sort of say at least 2 semesters, 3 semesters, if you count the summer of online, that there would be this new revision around the kind of value proposition of in-person versus online colleges and or undergraduate particularly. Are you all seeing that? Are you experiencing it? Do you see any trends in that way as it impacts your own enrollment, or are you concerned that there might be a siphoning off by exclusively online campuses more so than exists?
I would say from Baltimore City Community College, I honestly don't see that. I think given the demographic who we serve, and we certainly have students here who come with a range of academic accomplishments and abilities, I don't see that. That's not the profile and the demographic who we serve, and I think that we would end up with more challenges, less success, more failure, more hardship, with students really who are not prepared. It would really recall for a different relationship with, I think, Baltimore City Public Schools to bring students through at the K-12 level and prepare them then for moving into more online and remote environment. I don't see that happening for some years to come, and I think that the support and the resources we need more than ever are going to be to take us through a recovery mode for the students who really have not done well along the way, and how we're going to go back and move them now to another level of success. Many have dropped courses and so forth, really trying to struggle. So, Senator, I don't see that yet for Baltimore City.
Thank you, Dr. McCurdy. I see Dr. Jenkins wanted to respond, and then we'll come back, see if Senate President Ferguson had a follow-up, and then we'll move to Senator Washington. Dr. Jenkins.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Senator Ferguson, again, I think that President McCurdy hit on some of the points I wanted. What we've seen, and I think across higher education, we've seen the enrollment dip for so many students because this online virtual world is really not what they signed up for. It is that campus environment, it is that human interaction, those touch points, that environment that challenges and nurtures so many students in a way that helps them to be successful, that they really valued. And so I think that's where we are seeing so many students unfortunately stop out and drop out. And some say, I'll get back to you when this environment is different. And that, I think, is going to be a challenge for higher education to make sure we can get them back before they get involved in the trappings of everyday life, buying cars and goods that they didn't have to support. What I'm also concerned about is that if we don't continue to engage these students, we could lose a generation of scholars that would be impossible for us to get back and to recover from. And those are some of the challenges and conversations that I'm having and seeing across the board.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Senate President Ferguson, are you any follow-up or?
No, I think that covers, unless somebody has radically different thought.
Thank you. I'm gonna move to Senator Washington.
Thank you, Chair. Again, thank you all for joining us this evening. And again, this is the second time in a week that I've seen three of you. As you know, I'm a member of the Education, Health, and Environment Committee, and we had a really good hearing about supporting our HBCUs and resolving the lawsuit. I'm a part-time faculty at the Maryland Institute College of Art, so I am in this with all of you as well. I recognize the enrollment issues, the social, emotional, and behavioral health. Thank you so much for recognizing that. I was really pleased to hear that you are using some of your CARES money to assist your students. I'm definitely interested if other presidents have done the same. Issues around internet connection. I was very interested to hear that some of our institutions have refunded fees. President Wilson, thank you so much for that. I mean, that was really important. I know that was a hit, but that was absolutely the right thing to do. And I definitely admire you making that decision on behalf of your students and families. But my questions, and I'll send them to you because I have 5, so I know we don't have time for them. But it has about the health and safety protocols that each of you have. Are there standard, are there minimum requirements? Is there sort of a Maryland college and university health and safety protocols for our students and faculty and staff? Is there, or do each of you make your own decisions as separate institutions?
Anyone want to step up?
For the public university, for those of us in the system, there are broad guidelines that the chancellor and the Board of Regents have approved. And then they leave it to the individual institutions to make adjustments. So for example, just today, we had a conversation about who's eligible for vaccines and how we would convey that information to the people on our campuses. And so there's a statement that has been produced by the chancellor, but it allows us to make adjustments. So that's a long way of saying yes, but we are encouraged to do things on the individual campus because we're so very different. With a non-residential campus, very different than Coppin and UMBC or some of the other residential campuses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this just as a follow-up around transparency, around defining what an outbreak is, sharing with us your positive cases and how do you define outbreaks? Is that something that you report to the Baltimore City Health Department, to staff?
Absolutely. We report, each of us report to our county health commissioners so that they have the numbers. They know exactly on each campus what the positivity rate is.
And let me ditto that for Morgan as well. We're not a part of the system, and so we do report those numbers. In addition, we're very transparent. I have it on the website. And so every time we do a testing administration and we get positives, we update that number on our website.
Thank you. And then just finally, you all have contractual part-time and full-time of staff. So again, I'm very interested in our staff, the people sort of on the ground doing the work. Certainly concerned about faculty, but I'm also concerned about people that are interacting with our students. What role are you playing sort of in the distribution of the vaccine around your eligible staff, your 1As, your 1Bs, your 1Cs? Are you keeping track of how many on your staff, your part-time contractual staff that are part of these and their access to the vaccine? Or would that be helpful?
So maybe why don't I take a shot at this, Senator? The challenge, of course, is that we're not in a situation yet where we have, in any significant way outside of the health system, been in a position to vaccinate any of our staff within the university. Again, there's guidance, as you know, from the state that education workers, it's been clarified to mean education workers, and as you know, in universities who are delivering in-class instruction may be eligible for the vaccine, and also some of our frontline service workers in 1C. But again, the difficulty is there's no ready source of vaccine to match that entitlement. So in terms of how we're thinking about dealing with this prospective population, we're spending a lot of time, and I did several meetings last week using this interim period before the vaccine is available to start working with groups like the Black Faculty and Staff Association, talking about issues around vaccine hesitancy, introducing leaders of the employee organizations to some of our clinicians and public health experts so that we can start the conversation about some of the anxieties that exist around vaccine hesitancy. And at the same time, we're working with those same organizations to roll out a major campaign across the Hopkins institutions around issues of the vaccine and trying to get at some of the anxieties that lead to hesitancy. In the case of the health system, to the extent that there has been a population in the health system, non-clinicians, but thinking about support staff and so forth that have been eligible, there's again been lots of efforts being made to try and address the issues of vaccine hesitancy. And we're hopeful that in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a One Hopkins message across health system and university around these issues, and we'll do our best to monitor uptake. But having said that, once you get outside of the health system, there's no vaccine right now to talk about in any appreciable way.
So Dr. McCurdy, you're going to be a site, right? A distribution site. So is that correct?
We are.
Yeah.
Yes,
will your staff will your frontline workers, your part-time contractual part-time who are eligible in this 1A, 1B, will they have access? Are you a part of those conversations to make sure they're able to get vaccinated?
Yes, I had conversations over the weekend with the health department who will be here hosting on site. That began today. We expect to see, they've indicated 400 to 500 individuals coming through each day. And I'm sure that's going to also depend on the consistent availability. So they expect to be here through February, likely into March. We've sent out communication after discussions with them that would be available, and we are now communicating with individuals that they need to go and sign up electronically for that. And so that's the information that we received over the weekend, that they would be eligible. They simply need to sign up. And right now, I think there are no spots left through the end of January and probably into February. So it's going to be, I'm sure, hectic with people trying to get there. But I certainly agree with President Daniels that we have to do something in this zip code in particular, dealing with vaccine anxiety and hesitancy, and how we begin to talk to people about really their welfare and their health, and making certain that they clearly understand that this is going to benefit this community greatly as well.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator Washington. I'd like to recognize Senator Hayes.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Over the last year, I've been really focused on, how do we build wealth, especially in communities of color. And I think one of the challenges that Baltimore we have no shortage of government entities or nonprofits, especially, having a conversation with one of my colleagues from Prince George's County the other day. We have far more nonprofits that really, focus on poverty maintenance. And, and there's definitely, I think the institutions here today show that we definitely have the, the brain power and others here and trying to take it to the next level. In addition to the universities and colleges that we have here, we have about 100,000 college students that come through Baltimore every year, most of which leave Baltimore, right? They get a quality education from our awesome institutions and they leave. By the end of this week, I'm going to introduce a piece of legislation modeled after the Live Near Your Work program called Live Near Your School program, where individuals who go to school here would be provided some, down payment assistance or whatever. I think Hopkins is probably the only private institution here, but I would imagine there will be unique challenges for institutions that depend on state dollars to offer a program. And it's just simply given an option for schools to participate to try to retain some of that brain power here in the city. But I wonder, and I know we only have a couple of minutes left, and even if it would have to be after this, if you all would give some thought to how we can, what other things we could continue to do to increase the amount of individuals. I think the most recent ABLE Foundation report identified that the largest population of individuals leaving the city are African-American professionals, which many of you contribute to educating. So even if you don't have an answer today, I wonder if you all could consider what things we need to do to retain some of those young people here in Baltimore City.
Well, Senator, as you know, again, we're slightly an exception to this because most of our students are from a 5-county area, and even our law students stay generally in the state or the region. But I primarily right now what we're doing is in our business school, our entrepreneurship program is finding resources that help young people who want to start businesses, to give them some startup funding and also allow them to use our facilities if they want to have this as their business address, to use the Entrepreneur Center. So there are a lot of ways in which we can assist young people starting businesses at an early stage and staying in the area. But you're absolutely correct. There's much more that needs to be done because we have to break the cycle of people leaving. But again, it does show too that we're educating some high quality people that folks want around the country. I mean, our College of Public Affairs young people get jobs in the federal government and move out, and our law students and our business school, they also get offers in other places. But the overwhelming majority of University of Baltimore graduates stay in the state. But I recognize that we should do more in partnership with others, and we'll think through some ideas.
And Senator, first, I applaud your effort to try and keep as many professionals in our city as possible. I do see some pockets in the city that I think are working quite well toward that goal. And I would hope that the city of Baltimore would want to quadruple like innovation zones where with a high degree of intentionality, you kind of go even into some of our challenged areas and create these incredibly rich innovation zones where, we have, we have strong university in STEM, in engineering and the sciences, and then you got, Hopkins all world. How do you create these kind of opportunities where the students are coming together, first of all, across these institutions in these social spaces where they get ideas about company formation, and then they have funds, angel funds or whatever, that are set up then to help them to get these businesses off the ground. I've seen that work, in so many places. I even did a semi-case study in Austin, Texas, when Michael Dell moved there and started Dell Computers and couldn't keep engineers. Well, they couldn't keep engineers in Austin because there was nothing for them to do after 5 o'clock. And so they had to really kind of go and rethink the whole Austin, Texas area, the arts zones and, the bars and all of that, right, to create this ecosystem where the medical people were coming in contact with the engineers, or coming in contact with the teachers, coming in contact with the lawyers. And then all of a sudden you get all these businesses that spring up. So I do think there's a lot of possibility here. And I applaud you for thinking about it.
Thank you. It doesn't look like any of my colleagues have any more questions. So at this moment, just wanted to take the time out to wrap up. Just want to say thank you to each and every one of our panelists for joining us tonight. Madam President, Mr. President, your insights have provided my colleagues and I and people across the city of Baltimore a briefing on some of the challenges and opportunities facing our universities and colleges during this health pandemic and this era of COVID-19. Just like to say to the public, if the hour wasn't long enough for you, please feel free to continue the conversation by connecting with us via social media. The Baltimore City Senate delegation is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You may also visit our website at bcsdelegation.com. We will be holding grassroots briefings every Monday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. during a legislative session. We hope that you will join us next week for a conversation around housing security and homelessness. Again, thank you. And just wanted to say, please have a blessed evening. Please be safe. Thank you again.